So this is one of my videos in the series that I did based on the 8 sort of tools that I use on a daily basis for improved well-being, positive mindset, just showing up the way I want to in the world. So the reason I want to talk about journaling is that it actually has been something I've been struggling with recently, which is ironic because if you watched my last video, you know that I've been journaling for over 20 years. Like most of my life, I've been journaling. So it's funny to me that I have recently had struggles with it. But I think where it came from was that I sort of shifted the way I journal recently and I didn't find it beneficial. So I wanted to share with you, especially if you're new to journaling, but if you've been doing it for a while, maybe you'll get something out of this as well. But primarily for people who are either struggling with the way they're currently journaling or who haven't journaled before and want to get into it. There's probably, hundreds of different approaches. I have no idea. But the ones that I wanted to talk about today are a few simple things. So, first one being to just stream of consciousness, just let it out. And I want to say with that, to make your journal a safe space. Treat it as if it would be your best friend. If you are your best friend and you are listening to yourself unconditionally, or if it's easier to imagine that it's literally your best friend, because hopefully you have a good enough relationship with your best friend to where you can tell them things and they're not going to be like, oh, you feel that way, they're going to be like, okay, let's talk about it or whatever. They're giving you that safe space. And that's what your journal, I think, should be, is that you can say anything in there, you can write anything in there, and it should just be what it is. Don't focus on trying to edit it or overanalyze it or be like, oh my god, I feel that way. I mean, and you can go back and read it and be like, oh, interesting, or I'd rather think that way, or whatever it is, that's fine. But I think that for me, what I've found in my, few decades of journaling that has been the most, or rather the times when journaling has been the most beneficial for me, is when it comes from a place of just acceptance, just letting it out, whatever happens, whatever I need to work on. And often when I do the sort of stream of consciousness, I might think that I have, a question or a problem or a challenge or something that I really want to write about. And I start writing and something totally different comes out. So just, be accepting of whatever happens. And then if you, like I said, if you want to go back and look at it, fine. But I would say to just be kind to yourself and be open and accepting. Another sort of technique that you can use, and I'm going to put a link in the description to someone who I think is way better at journaling than I am, probably. His name's Chip Franks, and he has been on my favorite podcast, the Achieve Your Goals podcast with Hal Elrod, multiple times, because he's just a super great guy, super grateful person. He's really, really amazing at gratitude, but he's also an expert at journaling. So I'm going to link that episode as well, because I think that you might get something out of that. Because I listened to it, like I said, and I've been journaling for a really long time, and I was like, oh, it's interesting. He breaks down a few different techniques. I'm not going to go into as many as he does, but that might be something to check out as well. But another technique that I think would be useful, that's something that I think Chip talks about in this specific episode. It's been a moment since I've listened to it, but then also one of Hal Elrod's best friends and other frequent guests and co-hosts of the show sometimes is John Berghoff, who I absolutely love and admire. I think he's an incredible person, phenomenal thinker, just the way he thinks. I just want to just hop inside his mind for a day and just be like, how cool must it be? And I think that what he specializes in is very powerful when it's applied to journaling. So his main area of focus is appreciative inquiry, and he delivers an amazing TED Talk on it, which I'll also link to. And appreciative inquiry basically is asking expansive questions. So a typical mindset for both people and businesses especially, might be if you're dealing with a challenge or if you want to improve, you might say what problems do we have? What are the biggest problems? What are the, challenges we have? Which is sort of focusing on the negative, what's going wrong. And I think, like I said, with the stream of consciousness, because something I experienced this past month is I was trying to write only positive things in my journal. That backfired. So that's why I mentioned that first, is to just let out anything and acknowledge emotions that you have. Do acknowledge it. Don't try to bury it, because it will explode like a volcano out of you sometimes in a big long crying fest, as happened to me. And so I do think that it's important to acknowledge that humans are a range of emotions, and emotions are just messages. They're just trying to tell you something. So that is important. But what I found with appreciative inquiry is it takes those questions that are the, sort of stereotypical, sort of like old school way of thinking, if you will, of like, what's the problem, what's the challenge, and sort of flips it on its head. And it's like, what would be the ideal outcome? Or what are our strengths? What is a time when we have done really well? And what did we do in that occasion? How can we replicate it? So, for example, if you have something where you feel like in your life, you're like, oh God, I'm just like, oh, like dealing with this situation. What you could do is that same type of thing. You could just write in your journal, what would be the ideal outcome? Or if anything were possible, what would I do? Or if you feel overwhelmed by it, what would be the first step to getting to my dream life or dream goal or dream outcome of the solution, ideal outcome, whatever it is. So that I think can be very, very powerful. And then the third thing that I'll say with journaling, because I want to keep this video short so you can just, easily digest it, because I think we're all strapped for time and mental health and space during coronavirus right now. It's just something else. So the third thing I'll say is, if you're new to journaling, if you're really struggling, if just like staring at a blank page is like, I cannot do this. This is like, I'm not a writer, I'm not, if you're struggling with that type of thinking, because it can be overwhelming. I've experienced that as well, is to look at a prompted journal. I think I made that phrase up. I don't think that exists. I don't think anyone calls them that. But there's lots of really powerful, really good journals that exist that have prompts. So you can just like write it in. And with those, and with journaling in general, I would say don't feel like you have to do it in a certain way. So for example, if you buy a journal and it's filled with a bunch of prompts you're supposed to fill in, if you get to a page and you're like, not really feeling that right now, like maybe flip the page, maybe look for something else that you would like to write about. And then maybe that will get you to a place where you feel like you understand how you want to approach journaling. And same thing, with journaling, if you just have a blank journal that you're using, don't feel like, oh, I have to do it, in this way or in this format at this time, whatever. Just experiment, see what works for you, because that's been, with me, with journaling over 20 years, like that's been what I've done. Like I've tried journaling first thing in the morning, but I found that I hated that because I like to run first thing in the morning. So I like journaling in the morning before I, get into my workday for sure, but I don't like to do it right when I wake up. So definitely find what works for you. With journals that have prompts, what I would recommend, two that I would recommend, there's a plethora out there. So search around, read the descriptions of them. If there's if it shows like a picture of it, or if you're in a position where you can physically go look at it and flip through the pages, check it out before you purchase it maybe, or like read the reviews, see if people have shared their experiences with it. But two that I can definitely recommend, because I've purchased them either for myself or as gifts, are the journals that the company The Happiness Planner makes. Love everything that Happiness Planner does. Like it's really good, and it's a great, like it focuses on positivity, but it also focuses on the reality of people have normal lives and experience a range of emotions. So it really walks you through everything, like the good, bad, ugly, everything in between. So Happiness Planner, amazing, absolutely amazing. And also the second one would be the Cosmic Journal by Yannick Silver. Incredible. And Yannick Silver is also just an inspirational dude. Like I'm on his email list. Great dude. He was also on Hello Rod's podcast, and I can link to that episode as well. So those would be the three things I recommend. Number one, just stream of consciousness. If that doesn't feel right for you, try starting with a question or some kind of prompt. You can even Google like common journal prompts if you can't think of one on your own, or some kind of appreciative inquiry, expansive questions that get your brain thinking, because your brain will automatically produce an answer if you ask it a question. It's just biologically programmed to do so. Or if those aren't working for you, try a journal with prompts already in it, and then just try and go through that if you're just getting into journaling. But please let me know if you've got any other suggestions, if you've tried something and it's really worked for you, because I think that we can all absolutely, in any way, all the time, learn from each other and just learn and grow. So yeah, definitely drop me a comment if you've got any suggestions that we can all learn from. And I might do another journaling video because there's so much to talk about. But those are my three main suggestions for now. So good luck, happy journaling, have a great time, and just be accepting of what comes. See ya.